a lot of times we try to like culturally, rising early and hustle culture and like rise and shine, get it done. It's kind of glorified. And if
Mm.
you're not doing that, you're not a high performer, or you're not going to accomplish a lot. And I say that's really, the people that aren't those natural sort of type A lions that get up and just have all this energy, and that's what the time they naturally would get up. If you're not really in that category, and then you're trying to move into that category and you're judging yourself because you're having
Yeah.
such a hard time getting up, that doesn't serve you. It's not,
No.
there's different types of people, and just honoring your body, what your disposition is will lead you to live a happier, healthier life, will lead you to sleep better. And now I'm a big believer in listening to your body, and the body talks.
Devin Burke, this is such a pleasure. Welcome to my podcast, Your Body's Way. This is such a privilege. I know that you have a lot going on, and you're helping a lot of people at the moment with their sleep. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing awesome, and I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invite. And
Mm,
I'm excited to talk to you about sleep, because like you mentioned, it's a lot of people are struggling, and a lot of people are now waking up to how important
mm.
sleep is. So
I like that.
yeah, yeah.
I love that. You basically built your business and your life around such an important topic. It's so important, but yet it's so, I don't know if you feel this as well, but I feel like it's so underappreciated. Like it's something that we don't talk about much. And it's kind of like, we love to talk about exercise, we love to talk about nutrition, and we get all excited about that stuff. But when it comes to sleep, a lot of people kind of switch off at that point, literally. Like they're just,
Yes.
speaking of sleep, like we switch off. And yeah, I don't know if you find that, like, how do you navigate that?
100%. It's interesting because, yeah, when you ask people about their health, the first things people think about is exercise and nutrition. They don't think about sleep. But when you
Mm.
when you look at it from a survival standpoint, this is fascinating. You last a couple of minutes without air, a couple of days without water. The next thing in that line is sleep, most important. Then it's food, then it's exercise. But
That's
most of
right.
us just don't realize. And honestly, I didn't realize how important sleep was. I took it for granted.
Yeah.
And it's really only when you're not getting the sleep that your body needs that you start to fully understand how powerful and
Hmm.
important sleep is.
Yeah.
And so there's this whole group of people that they sleep kind of okay. It's
Hmm.
not really great sleep, it's not terrible sleep. And so they don't really think that much about sleep.
Yeah.
And then there's this group of people that are not getting sleep, and it's affecting their life in a huge way. And then on
Yes.
the other side of that, there's people that are getting good sleep, but they want to get even better sleep,
Yeah.
because they realize that we're doing it for a third of our lives. And so, think about that. A third of our entire
It's
life
crazy.
is
Crazy.
spent in bed. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want to, leverage that third to
Mm.
make the other two thirds that much better? And that's what's possible when you really understand how to do it.
I really love that. And the way that I've come to learn about sleep is when it comes to like, the human body and human health, I see sleep as like the top of the tree. Because, like you said, and I had the privilege of kind of binge watching your, your TED Talk video and like your
Mm.
podcast and so on. And you said something really great. And basically, what you just said, you can miss a workout. You can have a bad day of food, like you can have a kind of binge and you'll be fine. But you have one night of bad sleep and you are screwed for the rest of the day. And like I couldn't agree more. When I don't get a good sleep, I oh gosh, my anxiety is high. I'm headaches, obviously tired, moody, and I can imagine anybody who has chronic insomnia or any type of sleep disorder. Gosh, it must absolutely take over their lives. So the people that come to you must be really a really focused audience that you have, because they have trouble with sleep and they're like, God, this is really a problem for me. I'm going to listen to this guy. Like you must have a very dedicated audience.
I would say I actually would use the word desperate.
Desperate, yeah, that's a better word.
Literally, they're at their wits' end, and usually people that we help, they've tried the acupuncture. They're probably on some type of medication. They've tried all the supplements. The room is cold and dark. They're practicing all the
Yeah,
sleep hygiene.
right.
You know, they've seen a doctor, and they're kind of, you know, if they're lucky enough to find us, you know, those are the types of people that we help. It's they're kind of, they're at their wits end, and they'll
Yeah,
do whatever it takes. And it makes it, actually having that type of person makes it, it's challenging to help them, but they're motivated
yeah.
because they're in such pain. They're in such a poor state
Mm,
mentally and physically that they literally will do whatever it takes
yeah,
to regain their natural ability to sleep.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's really rewarding work to see
yeah.
someone go from literally 2 to 3 hours a night, and using medication, to then within just a matter of weeks being able to naturally sleep, and just their whole look changes. They look healthier, they're more energized, they're happier.
Yes.
It's very, very rewarding work that we do at Sleep Science Academy.
Yeah, and everybody knows what it's like to have that incredible sleep. You know, when you wake up and you know you've had a really good sleep and you feel really bright behind the eyes and you feel calm and energetic. Like it's such a, you know, you know, we don't value it enough. The people who do get good sleep, we just don't value it enough. So that's why this episode is so important. But I'm really curious about yourself, actually. So you just mentioned the Sleep Science Academy, which you are the founder of, you're the creator of. You know, you're an author of the Sleep Advantage book from 2021. And yeah, you're one of the best sleep coaches around. So, what made you get into this? What is your story?
Yeah, I'll give you the quick version.
Mm,
So I was working as really as a life coach, and this is about 6 years ago, with a lot of high performing entrepreneurs, people running businesses and companies. And a lot of them, as you can imagine, were having sleep issues. And this one particular person was having really bad sleep issues. And they were like, "Hey, what do you know about sleep?" And I was honest. I said, "I don't know anything about sleep. You know, like I'm a great sleeper." And he's like, "Well, you know, can you look into this for me? I don't want to get on medication." And the doctor's telling me, "Hey, you need to get on medication." So within that week, I started to do some research on what's available for people that have sleep issues. And what I kept coming across was medication. And then I started to do some research on the types of medications and what would happen when people would take these medications. And so I was like, this can't be the answer. And so I kept doing research. And then I came across this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And I said, "Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, that's really interesting. Let me dive more into that." So I dove into learning a little bit more about this cognitive strategy, and all of the things that I had studied up until this point. It was really a 10-year journey of me going down a rabbit hole of understanding human physiology and psychology. And I said, "Oh, I think I might be able to help people with this." So long story short, I got some certifications in sleep. I kind of put my twist to it. I was able to help this person. And then I said, "Well, if I can help him," and I saw what a big difference it made for him, I'm like, wow, I can help thousands or millions of people, because millions of people have this problem. So I said, "Let me do that." And so that led me to found Sleep Science Academy. And we're not helping millions of people yet, but we are helping thousands of people with this chronic insomnia. And yeah, and so that's the short version of a longer story. But in a nutshell, that's what got me into it.
I love it. And what's unique about your story is usually if someone has founded this incredible business, usually it's from their pain point. So their personal pain point, they're like, oh, you know, I could never lose weight myself, but now I'm like a world-class nutritionist. Or but for you, it's like, well, I slept great. So so it's kind of the reverse. But what happened with you is you just found that your clients were struggling with sleep. So it shows that it's a bigger problem than you know we could ever imagine. It's true, isn't it? We're getting less sleep over the decades, right?
It is. So, and it's, unfortunately, it's continued to decline.
Oh God, why is
And
that?
yeah, so well, there's two reasons. I mean,
Right.
the first reason is technology. So
Mm,
people are, they're staying up late watching Netflix shows. They're, there's just they're playing video games. They're working. We just have this, and technology has invaded our life.
mm,
And then the second piece of that is people just don't understand how important sleep is. And so we live in this world where sleep actually is stigmatized. It's seen as a weak habit of low performers. It's seen as a waste of time. You hear these things like, you snooze, you lose. I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? So culturally, it's actually, sleep is looked at like it's a black sheep. Like, if you're sleeping, you're missing out.
Yeah.
That's the message,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
so then people, there's this whole thing around even sleep procrastination, where people, they don't want to sleep. They don't want to get to sleep because they're like, oh my God, I have so much to do, or I'm wasting my time. And versus you go a couple hundred years ago, well, first there wasn't electricity, right? So there's candlelight. People mostly were working outside, connected to their circadian rhythms with the sun rising and setting. It was just completely different lifestyle than our 21st century life that we live in now.
Yeah.
And so it's continuing, unfortunately, some people now, the culture is starting to shift around it with celebrities that
Yep.
are,
Right.
talking about sleep.
It always
And
comes full circle, doesn't it?
it does. It does.
Yeah.
So people are coming around. And one of, a big part of my mission is to continue to, which is why I do conversations like this, is to help people really connect to how important sleep is, and to really prioritize and protect it. Because if you don't see something as important, you're not going to prioritize it. You're not going to protect it. You're not going to try to improve it. But as soon as you understand how important something is, then it's like, okay, let me do something about it. Let me change my behavior. Let me change how I'm thinking about it. And then you get to experience that vibrancy that you were talking about after a great night of sleep. And so that really motivates me to continue to share innovative solutions for people to do just that.
Yeah. And when you say how people link high performance to getting less sleep, I couldn't agree more. It took me back to a memory when my dad, when I used to sleep in as a teenager, I used to just sleep, as teenagers do. My dad was like, did you know that Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister of England, she used to sleep on just 4 hours a night? And he used to just say that to me over and over again. I was just like, oh, so even from then, even my dad must have thought on some level, that, getting less sleep means you get more done.
Yes.
So I've got a really interesting question for you then. What do you think of this whole 5 a.m. club trend? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's
Yeah,
okay as long as you get enough sleep beforehand, or?
I do. I mean, so I'm a believer in chronobiology.
Mm,
So chronobiology, essentially, we come into this world with a unique set of genetics. And so you might have heard of like a morning person, a more morning type
yeah.
person, or evening type person. So you want to honor that. Not everybody is meant to wake up and be an early riser. And
Hmm.
there's a great sleep scientist, Dr. Michael Bruce. He has this great book, Power When. He talks about these different types, and he gives them names of like lion, a dolphin, a bear, a wolf. And we each kind of have this natural sort of set time that would be best for us to sleep and to wake up. And if you want to live your healthiest life, it's best to honor that. And so some people, you're just not designed to be an early riser. Even if you're going to bed earlier, it's just, you're kind of going against your biology.
Right.
So not to say that, you can't influence that, and you can't change that. You can a little bit, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's like we come into this world with certain gifts and a certain disposition, and that includes our sleep rhythm. And so I think that certain people, if it doesn't feel natural for you to get up at 5 a.m., then you probably shouldn't be getting up at 5 a.m. So, and if you want to, wake up earlier, you could absolutely experiment with, pushing your bedtime to an earlier time, so you're getting enough sleep and enough quality sleep. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It does make a lot of sense, and it's really surprising because I would have thought, to to honor your biology would be to rise with the sun, as they say. But would you say that's not quite accurate? Like, not
So
everybody
yeah,
rises with the sun.
I would say that. Yeah.
Okay,
And
that's
yeah.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
so, and depending on where you live, in what hemisphere,
Mm,
in what time zone, the sun's going to
it's
rise
true.
and
Yeah.
set. So I'll just tell you a quick story for, personally, for this week.
Yeah.
So I am in Utah right now, and I was living in Florida. And so the sun sets here at this time of year at like 9:30. not between 9 and
Right.
and so it's kind of shifted my schedule a little bit, to be honest,
Mm.
because there's more light. And so it's just, so depending on where you are in the world, your body eventually kind of finds its rhythm and its balance. It can take
Mhm.
some time, but yeah, I think that not everybody is meant to rise with the sun. I think
Yeah.
there's certain people that it's okay if you don't, to be honest.
Okay. That's really refreshing, especially for people who find it difficult to wake in the morning early. It's probably quite refreshing for people to hear that, and maybe they can relax a bit more and they can think, okay, I'll just need to listen to my body, and maybe they'll be happier, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I think that a lot of times we try to, like, culturally, rising early and hustle culture and like rise and shine, get it done. It's kind of glorified. And if
Mm.
you're not doing that, you're not a high performer, or you're not going to accomplish a lot. And I say that's really, the people that aren't those natural sort of type A lions that get up and just have all this energy, and that's what the time they naturally would get up. If you're not really in that category, and then you're trying to move into that category and you're judging yourself because you're having such
Yeah.
a hard time getting up, that doesn't serve you. It's not,
No.
there's different types of people, and just honoring your body, what your disposition is will lead you to live a happier, healthier life, will lead you to sleep better. And now I'm a big believer in listening to your body, and the
Mm.
body talks,
It
right?
does.
So it's up to us, though, to have the courage to listen and to go against all those programs that say, well, if you sleep till 8 o'clock, you're not a high performer. You're
Mm.
not gonna accomplish big things. I don't believe that at all. I
Yeah.
think that you actually will accomplish more if you honor your natural rhythm.
Okay. I have to say that the hustle culture is so glorified. Like you said, it's so glorified these days. And I think social media is a massive driver of that.
Oh yeah.
And so I can imagine that the introduction, like you said in the beginning, the introduction of social media um, has been one of the reasons why we're sleeping less.
A
As-
hundred percent. A hundred
right.
percent. And even some in ways like, it's so interesting. People, it's social media is a very interesting thing. And I
Mm.
think it's great to get a message out, but it definitely can. I see people like comparing their sleep. I'm like, guys, no, like sleep is not a
God,
competition.
we love to compare things, don't
Yeah,
we?
it's
Like
like, oh,
even the
let's do like,
sleep.
yeah, like, there is like a celebrity, I think who was it? Jennifer Aniston and oh gosh, another famous celebrity. They were doing like this sort of who could get better sleep. And it's silly. Sleep isn't a competition. And
Mm.
if there's pressure, if you put pressure around your sleep, you sleep worse.
Yes. Right.
So I'm always telling our clients, like, identify the ways in which you put pressure to sleep, and whether that's comparing yourself to your partner, like, oh, my partner sleeps like a rock, and I think that I need to sleep like that, or I want to sleep like that, and there's this whole thing around that's not healthy. It's like,
Yeah.
well, okay, maybe she's a different type of sleeper than you, right? And
Yeah.
not to say that you can't improve your sleep, but it's just, if you're comparing yourself to anyone, you're just putting unnecessary pressure on yourself. And comparison is a quick way to really get unhappy quick.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of studies that link mental health with sleep health. It's very, very, very connected. I would go so far to say that the number one reason why people don't sleep well is because they're stressed mentally, which then becomes a physical stress. And a lot of times people are just not aware of it, or they don't have the courage
Hmm.
to actually even admit it, to even admit that they're under stress. Because again, people are so hesitant to, like, if you're under stress, then, oh, that must mean that you're not organized, or you don't
Yeah.
have your shit together, or whatever it is, right? And so I think a big part of improving your sleep is just getting honest with yourself,
Right.
and being willing to really look at not just your bedtime, but your whole life, because you can't separate your night from your day. And I always say a great night of sleep happens as soon as you wake up, because
Mm.
everything you do throughout that entire day dictates how well you're going to sleep. How well you sleep dictates that entire next day. So it's cyclical. And
Yep.
insomnia really isn't a nighttime disorder. It's a 24-hour disorder.
Yep.
And so people need to understand that. It's really, really important for people listening to understand that if you're having challenges with your sleep, or if you just want to improve your sleep, you need to look at 24 hours, not
Right.
just the 8 hours or the 9 hours at the end of the day.
I love that. Insomnia is a 24-hour disorder. It's not just about the sleep, it's about what you're doing during the day as well. That really puts things into perspective. But can I just ask, so just kind of bringing it all the way back to the basics, why do we need sleep? Why is it
Yeah.
important?
Well, for a number of reasons. So it's during the night really when our immune system is most active. So we all have cancerous cells in our body, damaged cells, free radicals. It's during the night that our body actually, the lymphatic system, which is like the lymph system for the brain, removes toxins from the brain. The body's repairing all the damaged cells, all the free radicals. The immune system is essentially, you can think of it like, I like to give the analogy, it's like bringing your car to the mechanic. Every night when you're asleep, if your body was a car, and your body's doing so many things to keep you alive, to keep you in homeostasis. So from just a physical longevity standpoint, prioritizing sleep and getting enough sleep is going to extend your life, because the studies show that when you're not getting enough sleep, or not enough quality sleep, all the major diseases that people die from greatly get increased. I'm talking cancer, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia. When you don't get enough sleep, your risk gets exponentially elevated for acquiring all of those diseases. When you're getting enough sleep, because your body's repairing itself physically and also mentally, emotionally, which is another really important aspect of sleep, you're able to protect yourself from a lot of these other diseases that people have, because they're not sleeping enough, or they're not taking care of their mind body. From a cognitive standpoint, there's so much research now that shows that sleep is connected to short-term and long-term memory and learning. So if we sacrifice our sleep, we're not able to retain information as well. We're less creative. On the other side, if we're sleeping, we're more creative. We're able to have better memory, right? Better recall. Emotionally, we feel better about ourselves. We feel more confident. We have more energy. So literally every single aspect of our entire life, our
Yes.
relationships, our health, our performance, all is affected drastically, even after one night of sleep.
Mm,
Our hormones. So
right.
even after one night of sleep, our hormones get affected. So maybe tomorrow you've had this experience where after a night of sleep, the next day you're like starving. After a night of not a lot of sleep, you're like looking in the fridge for sugar, for fat.
Yeah.
You just feel, because your insulin gets thrown off after one night of sleep. And I've had this experience on the nights that I don't sleep well, which is rare, but I do have them. The next day, I'm just craving sugar. I'm hungry, and I eat, and ghrelin and leptin, the hunger and full signaling hormones, they get thrown off. So you're eating more. So I could go on and on about it, to be
Yeah.
honest, but
It's yeah.
I don't want to scare people, but I just want people to understand how, these aspects that are so critical to know.
It just shows if you have any goal in life, any goal, sleep is at the top of that tree, because when it comes to cognition, when it comes to your hunger, when it comes to just everything that requires that everything that you need to achieve the goals that you want, whether it be it to be fit, or whether you want to, be able to focus better at work, it always comes down to having good sleep. This podcast is a kind of mixture between nutrition, lifestyle, and fitness. And basically, I can imagine anybody who wants to lose weight, it's going
Oh
to be
yeah.
hard if you're not sleeping right.
Yes, big time. And the reason for that is, well, one, if you're not sleeping right, your cortisol is going to be increased.
Mm,
Now, cortisol is the fat storing hormone. Now, we need cortisol. It's what wakes us up in the morning. But if you're not sleeping, the cortisol gets elevated. And if the cortisol is too high, you store belly fat. Then ghrelin and leptin, right? So ghrelin is the hunger signaling hormone, increases, so you get more hungry.
mhm.
Leptin decreases, so you don't know when you're full. And then your insulin gets thrown off, so that you're craving sugar. And that's just a recipe for weight gain or not being able to lose weight. And I've seen this so many times. People have a great diet, have a great fitness routine, but their sleep is not off, and they're not able to achieve their fitness goals and their weight goals.
Yeah.
And as soon as they dial in their sleep, their body changes.
Yeah. Because when you have a bad sleep, you can't train optimally. You're making poor decisions when it comes to what you eat. So it really, if weight loss or getting into shape is your goal, then address your sleep. If you're not sleeping properly, then you need to go there first. I've had clients in the past who, don't go to bed until early hours, and I've been trying to kind of get them to go to bed at a good time, but it's hard. It's hard to get them to actually do it unless they see someone like yourself who like lives by it, and you're so passionate about it and you can put the message across like really powerfully. Um, there's so many studies done on people, on night workers who obviously they work during the night, but then their increase in metabolic disease is like, it's crazy. Like it just goes up. The chances go up so much.
Did you
Um,
know that the World Health Organization labeled shift work as a probable carcinogen?
really, I did not know that. I did not know that. I thought it's just metabolic disease, like heart disease and things like that. No.
No, it goes even further.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And
I'm not
so
surprised.
neither am
I'm
I.
not surprised.
And it's unfortunate because, we do need shift workers, whether it's at a hospital, doctors or nurses, or,
Yeah.
at factories. And there are ways of sort of balancing out shift work, but it just goes against our nature. Like we're
Mm.
meant to be asleep, at night, not
Yeah.
awake. So there are things you could do for all the shift workers that are listening to this to mitigate that. But really, ultimately, it's just not ideal. It's really not to be working during the night is not healthy.
Do you have any quick kind of tips around that, just seeing as you mentioned
Yeah,
it?
yeah, absolutely. So one of the things is usually with shift workers, there's like a couple of days on and a couple of days off. And when you come off of a shift, you want to wear, you like, say you're working the night shift, you finish, the sun's starting to come up, you're leaving the hospital, or you're leaving the factory or whatever it is, you actually want to wear sunglasses, because the thing that controls our circadian rhythm, one of the things is light.
Mm.
And so if you're going back to get some rest, to sleep during the day, you don't want the myopsin cells in the eyes to start to get that light to trigger wakefulness. So wearing sunglasses, also using, light therapy so at certain times, depending on, it really depends on the shift, how long a shift is, what the timing is, what time there's a lot of factors here. But using light therapy is a really amazing strategy for people that do shift work, whether that's having certain light at certain times or avoiding certain light at certain times, like having full blackout curtains in your home when you come in after a night shift, so that there's no light in there, so that you can actually get
Right.
some sleep. Utilizing some, supplementation to mitigate the negative effects on your adrenal glands, like maybe like an ashwagandha or holy basil, or something that would help sort of buffer the stress that comes along with going against nature. These are just some of the tips, but
Yeah.
it really is, it depends on the person's schedule and
Yeah.
what they're actually doing.
Okay. So this might be a silly question, but I don't think it is, and that's why I'm going to ask you. So, how does someone know if they have insomnia? Because I'll just give you an example. When I've got two kids. My recent is 1.5 years old, and obviously during the beginning of, after he was born, I was getting up very often during the night, and wasn't getting good sleep. But then when he stopped waking in the night, I would kind of get up, kind of wake up in the middle of the night and then go to sleep and then wake up and then go to sleep thinking he was crying. And then I'd just wake up exhausted in the morning. But then thinking that I had really good sleep though, overall, like I'd get about 10 hours in bed and, but anyway, that's just an example. I can imagine it's not as black and white for people, whether they have insomnia or not. Like they're just not sure. They just know they feel crap in the morning, but they thought they had a good sleep. Is basically what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
let's dive into that. So there's different classifications of insomnia.
Mm.
So first and foremost, there's two different types, really, primarily. There's onset insomnia, which is those that have trouble initiating sleep or with their sleep latency. And then there's maintenance insomnia, which is those people that wake up in the middle of the night and have a hard time falling back asleep.
Mm.
Okay.
Right.
And then there's different classifications as far as, is it transient, acute, or chronic? So transient is somebody that has a couple of nights off sleep, but then their sleep kind of finds its way after a couple of, days or weeks.
Okay. And that's fairly
Acute,
normal, right?
very normal.
Okay.
Everyone experiences this.
Right.
And it is a type of insomnia, but it's nothing to be concerned about. It's just, acute, then you're kind of moving the next level that is acute. So that's when it starts to kind of start to be a pattern, but it's less than 3 months. So maybe it's 2 months, you're starting to kind of, have this pattern where you're either having a hard time falling asleep or a hard time staying asleep, and it's starting to really affect your day. That's an important key to this. And then chronic. That's after 3 months, you're having trouble getting or staying asleep more than 3 days a week, and it's affecting your day. It's affecting your life in a big way. That you would say you could be considered to have chronic insomnia, either maintenance or onset or both. And then there are people that, they sleep enough, but they still wake up fatigued. And that's not really insomnia. That could be a sign, maybe you have sleep apnea. That could be a sign that you're doing things that aren't allowing your body to get into the deeper stages of REM sleep and delta sleep. Or there could be other health issues going on where you're just, there's other things that are affecting your physical energy and health outside of sleep itself.
So there are different types of insomnia. So obviously just a few days and then it goes away. That's kind of normal. People get that often and it's very normal. Leading up to 3 months is a kind of acute, and it could be situational, right? So for example, having a child, or if you've got a certain stress in your life that's kind of on your mind,
Yes.
that's kind of normal. But then when it gets to chronic, that's when are those the types of people that you deal with the most? They're the ones who need the real help.
Yes.
Like,
Yes,
yeah.
100%. And it's because it becomes a psychophysiological pattern in the body. So what happens is the body, there's this pattern, and it shows up in a lot of different ways for people, but essentially the body releases certain neurochemicals like adrenaline and cortisol, either leading up to bedtime or in the middle of the night. And then that keeps the body's releasing these because the mind is in these certain patterns, and people are trying to force and control sleep. They're thinking about the next day. They're worrying about losing their job. It's the body follows the mind. So if you're stressed about your sleep, which is a lot of the clients that we support after 3 months, about 3 months or longer, a lot of these people have had sleep issues for decades. And they're stressed about it. But if you're thinking about sleep, then that's a dangerous area, because now you're going to start to do things to sleep. And sleep's one of those things you can't force or control. And the more you try to force and control it, the further away it goes. So it becomes this kind of challenging thing. And then you have to break the physiological pattern of the body releasing those chemicals. So it can be a bit tricky for people. And also some of the things when it's chronic people do seem to make sense, but actually what they're really doing, and I can give you a couple examples of what I'm talking about here, they're actually extending their insomnia. And so a quick example of this is actually spending too much time in bed awake.
Right.
Because so this is called sleep efficiency in sleep science, your time in bed. And if you're not sleeping well and you have chronic insomnia, you actually want to spend less time in bed, not more.
That's a
So
really good tip. Like for anyone who's struggling with sleep, like that's one of the first things they can start to do, right? To just spend less time in bed awake.
And what that looks like, it depends on, if you have issues initiating sleep or falling back asleep, but practicing what's called stimulus control. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, after about 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, you don't look at the clock, you kind of feel what that feels like. You want to actually remove yourself from your bed and bedroom. Go to a place and have a plan do something relaxing, not so that you go back to sleep, but just to do it. And then once that sleepiness comes on, I call it the sleep train, just get on it, get back into bed. And because you don't want to be awake in your bed, tossing and turning, that you're anchoring wakefulness with your bed and bedroom. And that's not what we want. You have to break that pattern. And it can be really hard for people to practice this, because usually the last thing that people want to do in the middle of the night, if they're awake, is get out of bed.
Yeah, because
Because
you
then
want to lie, and you want to
they're
lie
like,
in
well,
hope that you fall asleep.
exactly. And that actually, what you're doing, if you do that, is you're creating a pattern, a wakefulness pattern, and you're going to continue. There's a high likelihood that that pattern will continue.
So we've all had that. We've all had those nights where we're tossing and turning and, just can't seem to get to sleep. But I personally wouldn't choose to get out of bed for that reason that we just said. I just want to try try and sleep, hopefully it'll come soon. But actually what you're saying is the best thing to do is when you're in that state of tossing and turning and you're just like, this isn't going to happen, so just get up and actually just do something relaxing, something to
Yeah.
take your mind off the sleep, and then only when you start to feel sleepy and go back to bed.
If people listening to this just did what you just said, it would be a drastic upgrade in their sleep. And
Wow.
they would start to move towards natural sleep. It's that important. It really, really is. And there's a distinction here that I think it's important for people to understand. You cannot trying to sleep. If you're trying to sleep in bed, you're doing something in bed. There's only two things you want to do in bed: sleep and make love to your partner. That's it. If you're trying to sleep, stop. Because trying to sleep is actually you trying to control something you have no control over. Just like you can't, force yourself to have a baby. It just kind of happens, right?
Yeah.
It's the same type of thing. Like sleep happens. Sleep is a result. It's a result. It's never a problem, and it's not the cause.
Right.
So it's very important for people to get that.
So that leads on perfectly to the next part. You said that insomnia is a 24-hour thing. And you just said that sleep is a result of what I presume to be the waking hours of what you did during the day. So that brings me on to the root causes of what bad sleep, where it comes from. And I just wanted to I just wanted to come to stress first of all. You said something really interesting. You said that, people don't like to admit that they're stressed, and I would like to add to that. I think people don't know when they're stressed as well, because especially these days, and I saw you say this on one of your videos, people don't know how to make space in their day. So they're going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And even if it's something they enjoy, like, oh, I'm going to do a workout. Oh, and then I'm going to cook for the family. And then I'm going to do, even if it's not even that stressful, it's just stuff that you quite like and quite enjoy. It's the fact that you're going from one thing, you're doing, like one thing to the next, and not leaving any space in your day. That is a form of stress, and people just don't know that. So can you speak on stress and like how that's like what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I'm so happy that we're talking about this, because it is a blind spot for a lot of people. And most people are chronically stressed and they don't know it because it's become their norm. And then I'll go so far to say that some people are actually addicted to stress. You can get addicted because when you're under stress, your body releases certain neurochemicals like adrenaline, and it can become an addiction. You can get addicted to your own stress hormones.
Right.
So what you described is what I call nexting, going from the next thing, the next thing, next thing. And yeah, so you're building this tension, this pressure in your mind body system that then needs to be released at the end of the day. So if there's no space, if there's no breaks throughout your day, times just to kind of literally not problem solve, not do anything, then at the end of the day, there's all this tension and pressure that builds up in the mind body system that needs to be released in order for sleep to happen. So if you're taking these micro breaks in between your activities, even activities that you like to do, what you're doing is you're kind of letting a little pressure out of the pressure valve that builds up naturally through our day, so that there's not so much pressure that needs to be released at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It makes a massive, massive difference. And At Sleep Science Academy, we have all of our clients start to practice mindfulness or some type of meditation to bring awareness to their bodies, to bring awareness to what's going on in their minds, to actually practice just sitting and doing nothing and being okay with that. Because a lot of people, it's very uncomfortable to actually just slow down and sit and be with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard for a lot of people to do that, because they're like, well, if I sit there and then then my mind starts going, I'm thinking about all this stuff, and so that's a pattern that it's an unhealthy pattern that that you can it's a habit that you can change.
Mm-hmm.
And what fires together wires together in the brain, right? So it's like allowing yourself to take a breath and just slow down
Mm-hmm.
and start to just be with your thoughts and connect to the fact that you're not your thoughts. It allows you then to create space.
Yeah. I think you're right. Having that mindfulness in between is really, really, really important. And what doesn't count are things like scrolling through your phone. Like that doesn't count. Like it just doesn't, because
That's right.
if to me, like the scrolling and the social media and all of that is, it's a form of doing. Like
That's right.
I'm sure you've seen these. I don't know who says it, but basically, when you're on social media, it's still an energy exchange. So you're still exchanging, you're still expending energy on something. So that doesn't work. But then also sitting and kind of thinking about your worries and your concerns and things like that doesn't count either. Like just sitting and just letting your mind wander into something that worries you. And that's also like losing energy, and you're not creating the space. So really, like you said, the only thing is kind of some sort of mindfulness in between.
Yeah. And mindfulness is just bringing your attention to whatever it is you're doing. So you could be mindfully doing anything, really.
Mm,
Mindfulness, how I define mindfulness, is it's a way of being.
mm,
And most of us, most of the time, are not mindful at all. We're thinking about the future, we're problem solving, we're in the past. And so I like to say that a true break involves something that doesn't involve technology, not problem solving. So this could be a walk, this could be just bringing your attention to your breath down and learning how to breathe again. Most of us don't know how to breathe. We're breathing from our chest, and if you look at a baby in a crib, a baby breathes from their belly.
mhm,
That activates that parasympathetic, that rest response. So just doing 10 deep belly breaths, drinking a big glass of water, maybe doing something creative like playing music, giving your partner a hug, or your animal a pet, and really giving that full attention and presence to maybe your kids. Um, those actually, those are true breaks. Those
mhm.
are restorative. That's allowing your body to rest versus being this hyper aroused, go, 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 got to get it all done state, which doesn't serve our sleep or doesn't serve our life.
I think being present is a good way to describe that as well. Like just be in the room and just, be present. Don't think about other things. Just kind of be where you are and just kind of sink into that. I think that's probably another way to say it as well. Are there any other kind of lifestyle causes that you see most in your practice?
Yeah, no, there's absolutely, I mean, so there's a lot of reasons why people don't sleep. So sometimes it's poor habits around sleep.
Mhm.
People are eating too late at night, they're watching TV, they're drinking too much caffeine, they're using alcohol. So it could be purely a habitual thing. Usually there's underlying stresses that create those habits that need to be explored. It could be, somebody could have sleep apnea, which is, they're having stop breathing events throughout the night where it's causing them to wake up. It could be a physical pain, somebody that literally has, back pain or some type of pain that they can't get comfortable. Um, it could be an underlying health condition, but usually it isn't. Most people think when they're not sleeping, they're like, oh my God, something physically is wrong with me. Like I have some rare disease and it's not usually the case, but it can be. It could, some underlying health disorder. But generally speaking, for most people, I would say like 90% of the people that have issues with their sleep, it's stress related.
Right.
It's that hyperarousal pattern that people find themselves in. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of things that can factor into it for sure.
So you mentioned food and alcohol and caffeine. So there are a few things that I just want to kind of dive into a little bit. You mentioned eating too late. So what are your guidelines on when to stop eating for the best sleep?
So it depends. It depends on how fast your metabolism is.
Hmm.
Generally speaking, you want a 3 hour fasting window. And the reason is because the first cycle of sleep, which is the first 90 minutes, that first 90-minute cycle, really first two cycles, we're getting most of our delta deep sleep. That's like the deepest stage of sleep. That's when all the body repair systems are really most engaged. And we don't want the circulatory system to draw blood to the digestive tract, to the
Mm,
stomach during that area. We want the blood circulating, cleaning up these free radicals and clearing the things, the toxins that are in our bodies just from the air that we breathe, the food that we eat, the water that we drink. So really you want a 3 hour fasting window. Now this depends. Some people need a 4 hour fasting window. Some people can get away with like a 2.5 hour fasting window. Um, and a lot of people believe they can't sleep if they don't go to bed on a full stomach. Now
mm. Is that true or is that false?
that that is a habit. You've
Right, it's a
trained
habit.
your body to not be able to sleep without eating a bowl of ice cream or having a whatever it is that you eat right before you go to bed. So you can untrain it, and it can be an uncomfortable process, but you could do it.
Okay.
Just like you could stretch your stomach. If you start eating like twice the amount of portions that you normally eat, your stomach will physically stretch,
Hmm.
and then you'll be hungrier. Or if you start eating less food, your stomach will actually shrink, and then you don't need to eat as much food. So it's same kind of thing here
I mean,
with the
there are
food.
definitely times when I've gone to bed with a full stomach and I haven't slept well at all. So I can imagine it's like a sliding scale. Like even if you've had even if you had dinner like 1 hour before bed, but you managed to get to sleep okay. It's kind of like a sliding scale, though. It's like your sleep wasn't as good as it could have been, though, if you left that fasting window.
And it depends on what you eat too.
Mm. Yeah, go into that. Yeah, what's the best meal for
So
before bed?
so it depends.
Mm.
Again, like a lot of this is really bio individual, but if you're eating what's good for your health is good for your sleep. So if you're eating nutritious, whole, natural foods, organic foods, foods that are you're able to digest and you have a healthy digestive tract,
Hmm.
you're not eating heavy food like heavy creams and cheeses and like really things that are like take a long time for the digestion to break down.
Right.
You want to eat a lighter type of easy digesting meals at dinner, ideally,
Right.
especially if you're eating later, right?
Okay.
So if
Right.
you can't, for whatever reason, you're not able to honor that 3 hour fasting window, then just be more mindful about what you eat.
Hmm.
Maybe not eat as much, eat a little bit less, so that your body has time to digest that food and it's easier for it to digest before you fall asleep.
Right. And some people like to have a glass of wine in the evening. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people.
Mm.
And it's the thing is, unfortunately, alcohol, it can make us sleepy. It unfortunately disturbs REM sleep. It heats up the body. It's a toxin. Um, so if you're going to have wine, have it earlier with your meal.
Mm.
And really the dose is what makes the difference, dose and timing.
Yeah.
So quality, if you're having a wine that's loaded with sulfites and preservatives, not going to be the best. If you have a nice biodynamic, organic, French wine or something like that, and you're having one glass with dinner, no problem. But if that leads to 2 to 3 glasses and it extends from dinner into a nightcap, you're absolutely affecting your quality of sleep, 100%.
Right. And it is so interesting because a lot of people believe that alcohol helps them sleep, like having that nightcap actually helps them. But actually, it may help you go to sleep, but the quality of the sleep just won't be as good as,
Exactly. And
yeah.
and and usually it's people use alcohol as a stress reliever,
Mm.
right? People drink caffeine to get their energy up, and then they drink alcohol to bring their energy down. And so there's a lot of other ways to manage your mental, emotional state that are actually more powerful than a glass of wine. Or
Hmm.
there's natural things like you could drink kava, right? Kava is a root from Polynesia that it helps the body. It's like a natural sedative. It helps the body relax.
Hmm.
Um, you could do some breathing. You could, there's other ways of mitigating stress. Alcohol is an easy way
Yeah.
to do it, but there's a lot of other easier ways that you can learn that are more powerful and don't affect your sleep.
Okay. Okay. So a term has come up a few times, the term sleep apnea. So I can imagine that you have a lot of people coming to you who struggle with sleep apnea. So first of all, what is it? And how can people overcome that? Because I personally know a few people who know somebody who has sleep apnea, and it really is it's a tough thing to have to deal with for the person and for the partner as well. And I can imagine it's quite hard for people who come to see you to actually deal with. Is it easy to fix, or is it more of a long journey?
It depends.
Mm. So what is it, first of all?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. So sleep apnea, there's different types of sleep apnea. So
mm,
obstructive sleep apnea, so there's a lot of different types and causes of sleep apnea. Oftentimes people have sleep apnea because they're overweight.
right,
But also you could be the fittest, healthiest person and still have sleep apnea. And sometimes it's the tongue is the muscle underneath the tongue, the myoglossus muscle isn't strong.
right,
It could be the structure of your jaw or your face, and your tongue slips back and it blocks the airway. And so you sort of have a stop breathing event and it stresses your heart. So you do this, multiple times throughout the night, you're actually putting a lot of strain and stress on your heart.
right,
Um, so it is something, it's also underdiagnosed, and it's definitely people that are diagnosed with sleep apnea, and you'd have to do an in-home apnea test, or you could go to a sleep lab. Most now, the in-home tests are probably the way to go
hmm,
to show you. And there's different, levels of it, mild, intermediate, or like severe, right? So if you feel, how you might have sleep apnea is you snore,
hmm,
or you wake up kind of gasping for air, or your partner, is like, yeah, you gasp for air, or you're a loud snorer. Usually if there's two things, definitely go get a sleep apnea test. And
right,
unfortunately, there's not a lot of great solutions outside of a CPAP. Well, here's the thing. If you're somebody that's overweight, first address that. Because oftentimes if you have sleep apnea and you're overweight, if you just lose the weight, you lose the apnea. If But it could be also, like I said, it could be some other structural thing as well. So you really want to go to a qualified sleep doctor,
okay,
um, and get a test. But then go through, if you have sleep apnea and you're overweight, lose the weight. Maybe the apnea goes away. If it doesn't go away, then maybe it's something structural, right?
yep, yeah,
Um, but the CPAP is essentially what it does is it forces air. It forces that airway to stay open so that you're not having these stop breathing events. Because again, we only last a couple of minutes without air,
right,
right? So, and we don't want to have these little micro breaks in us actually getting oxygen
hmm.
into our system, especially throughout the night.
So the CPAP, is that something that people wear, or
It is. It's kind of
right?
like a Darth Vader
Okay,
looking like a thing.
right, I get it.
It's
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable, and
Mm.
people hate to wear it. Um, and if you have sleep apnea, it is something that I suggest that you really follow through on wearing it, because it's going to strain your heart and your health and affect your sleep quality if you're not and you have apnea.
Right. I don't know what you think about this, but I was watching something recently on sleep apnea, and the person who was speaking was talking about how our ancestors didn't have sleep apnea because, well, first thing, they didn't tend to be overweight, but second, because structurally they had more space in their face. So basically, over time, apparently, our faces have become narrower. So, that means we need braces, and, our teeth are more crooked, and that means our airways are narrower. So the person was basically saying, oh, so the best thing to do is to, obviously change the way you eat, but then also to chew as much as you can, like, strengthen your jaw. And so with something as, I wouldn't call it extreme, but something that's so new, like I haven't heard anything like that before. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's some validity to it.
Right. Yeah.
Dr. I think Weston Price. Are you
Yes,
familiar?
I'm kind of talking about that. Yeah, the
Yeah, yeah,
person that was talking about the Weston A. Price, what he found. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
yeah. And I think that there's a lot of I think there's evidence that supports that. Is it true
Mm.
in all cases? Probably not.
Right.
Um, but it is true in a lot of cases for sure. And
Yeah.
there was actually a company, I don't know where they're based out of, but it's called Excite OSA, and they sent me a device to try out. And what it does is it's like this little device that you put in your mouth, and it kind of shocks your tongue almost. And it sounds scary.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not it's almost
Not
like one of
painful, is
those.
it?
It's not painful, but it's almost like if you it I don't know if you've ever seen those commercials where there's these ab machines where you put these little electrodes on your stomach,
Yeah, of
it,
course. Yeah,
and it
like
kind
back
of
in the
causes
day. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So it's kind of like that for your tongue, but what it does is it strengthens the myoglossus, the muscle that's underneath the tongue, so that it doesn't fall back. And they have a
Okay.
pretty high success rate for people that snore, as well as people that have mild sleep apnea. And so that's kind of
Oh.
a cutting edge new um, sort of option for people that have mild sleep apnea or are looking for solutions for their snoring.
Hmm.
But again, it depends. Maybe you're snoring because you have food allergies and your sinuses are clogged because
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
eating the wrong foods. Maybe there's a lot of, so that's the thing. With all this sort of advice, it really, you have to be your own scientist
Hmm.
and get really curious and explore, okay, well, what's going on for me? Because it might not be the same for you as it is for your neighbor who has sleep apnea, or right. So
Yeah.
it does take a little bit of desire to explore.
It does, because would you say that what I'm gathering is there's no one cure and there's no one reason why someone isn't getting good sleep. It's looking at the person holistically, and it's like, okay, do you find with your clients you need to look at everything with them? So not only just stress, but also food, um, drink, exercise. Like, is it the whole shebang that you have to look at?
It is.
Right.
And actually that's why we have a 97% success rate for people that
Mm.
complete our program. It's that high. And it's
I can imagine
because
other sleep specialists don't cover all of that. Like they don't cover the whole holistic being. They just kind of look at one thing.
they look at one thing.
Mm.
And a lot of times, well intended, and that one thing can help. So you can't just look at somebody's stress or mental state. You have to look at physiologically what's going on with them. You have to look at what's going on inside their head. You have to look at what their behaviors are, their environment is. um, I always like to share that if you're having sleep challenges, all it means is there's something to learn. There's something to learn. There's something out of balance in the way that you're showing up in your life, in what you're doing or what you believe. And it's an opportunity for you to do that work and discover something that you might not even be aware of. That So it's an opportunity, because I find this with so many of our clients. They're just not aware of things that when they become aware of them, like this pattern of trying to um, be the super person and not taking breaks, right? They see that and they're like, oh, actually that is me, this pattern. And then they start to change it. All of a sudden they start to sleep better. It's like these little things that people just don't really, it's just not in their awareness, um, that they shift. And then all of a sudden, again, the result is sleep. So it really is never one thing. It's always looking at, okay, it's kind of like being a detective of your life
Yeah. Yeah.
and looking at, okay, what are the small little things if I change, I wonder what would happen.
Mm.
And that's really what we do at Sleep Science Academy, is we help people see those small little things and hold them accountable to take action and shift those.
Because like you said, the sleep is a result of something. So if you're getting poor sleep, then something you're doing during the 24-hour day is not right. Like, and it's just an opportunity. It's a good thing in a way, because it's your body saying to you something's wrong, so
Yes.
you need to fix it. And then it's your
Yes.
chance to become the detective. And okay, so let me look at my lifestyle, my stress, food, and what would you okay, so I've got some just little questions here, and then I to finish I want to ask like your recommendations, like the best lifestyle practices for someone who wants to sleep well. But I have this I have this question that I think a lot of people deal with. So just say your partner does snore,
Mm.
so you're getting bad sleep because your partner snores. What is your usual advice for someone in that situation?
It's have a conversation with a partner,
Right.
because you have two options. You can communicate to them, hey, are you open to addressing this because it's keeping me up?
Mm.
And maybe they are, maybe they're not. And if they're open to it, great. Support them to explore why they snore and to find a solution for that. If they're not open to it, you have a choice. You could do a sleep divorce.
What's a sleep divorce?
It's, sleeping in another room,
Yeah, thought so.
and, or kicking your partner out of the bed and having them sleep in another room.
Mm.
So, and if it comes to that and they're not willing to do anything about it and it's that big of a deal for you, you know, that's what it comes to.
Mm.
And so it's having those conversations with your partner. You could wear earplugs too,
Right.
but depending on how loud the snoring is, that might not help. But
Yeah.
that's usually the general advice that we give people in these situations, which is very common, by the way.
Yeah, very common, very common. Um, Snoring aids. So people wear these strips across their noses and all sorts. Are there any kind of go-tos that you recommend to people?
Yeah. So obviously you want to address the root cause of it,
Mm,
right?
okay.
But breathe right strips are great if you have a small nose or
Mm.
if you're not a nasal breather. Breathing from your nose during the night is something that everybody should train their bodies to do. You don't want to breathe from your mouth. So mouth taping is a real thing. It's a little
I've
bit.
heard of that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've heard
So
of
that
that.
just, it helps. Essentially, you're using medical tape to
Mm,
tape your mouth shut to retrain your body to breathe through your nose during the night. And there's a lot of reasons why you want to do that. It
yeah.
increases nitrous oxide, which is really important to have a lot of nitrous oxide in the body for circulation and just for health. Your nose hairs filter out dust and
Mm,
pollutants, and it's not good for your the bacteria in your mouth to be
mm,
breathing from your mouth all
yes.
night.
Yeah.
It also can help with snoring.
Right. The nose breathing and the mouth breathing, that's definitely gathered popularity over time. You know, people becoming
Yes.
more aware now that they need to breathe through their nose, not through their mouth. And it's actually something I've become more conscious of as well. Again, just a personal story. I was when I was pregnant, I was a mouth breather. So I was
Mm,
breathing through my mouth. And oh my God, I'd be waking all night because my mouth was so dry.
yes.
And so ever since then, I'm very conscious of breathing from my nose. And then I sleep so much better when I'm aware of that, when I just know to close my mouth and then just hope for the best and just fall asleep. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important. Nose breathing is so, so important.
And there's a great book by author James Nestor called Breathe. And
Okay.
it's a whole book on this. I mean, this guy, this is his area of expertise, and he's really dove into the science around breathing,
Mm,
how to do it. And so for people that are curious, that's a great read.
yeah, right. So we've kind of talked about all of the, the root causes and all of the problems and blah, blah, blah. Let's go on to the more positive stuff then. What do you recommend to your clients? What are the typical lifestyle changes that you recommend people make? And what tends to help good sleep?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to this question,
Right, I can
and I
imagine.
could
Yeah.
probably talk for multiple hours on this, but I'll get just a quick little thing that people remember here
Hmm.
is 3-2-1 sleep.
Okay.
And so 3 hours before bed, stop eating. 2 hours before bed, you stop working. And then 1 hour before bed, that's when you want to start your nighttime ritual, which could be making love to your bed partner, drinking tea, stretching, meditating, something that doesn't involve technology or something stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just practice the 3-2-1, your sleep would improve. Your sleep quality would improve.
I love
Now, if you have
that.
insomnia, totally different story. But just for everyone that's listening to this, if you just practice 3-2-1 consistently, it would make a difference in your quality of sleep.
And then anybody who has insomnia, then again, it goes back to what we were speaking about before. You need to be your own detective, like deep dive
Yeah.
into what the reasons might be. So just two little recommendations that people make that I just wanted to run by you. Uh, Light blocking glasses and looking at the sun first thing in the morning. Are those two highly recommended? Are you on board with those?
I am.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually just recorded a podcast for my YouTube channel with a light expert. And it's really, really fascinating episode because we talk about for a full hour about light and how it affects our health and our sleep. And 100%, if you get outside and get light on your body first thing in the morning, it
Right.
makes a massive difference
Okay.
as far as your circadian clock. And then wearing blue light blocking glasses absolutely can help for sure.
Nice. In the evening, right?
In the evening.
In the evening,
Now,
right.
the company, there's a company I like. It's called Viva Rays, and actually the founder is the company is the one that I interviewed. Very knowledgeable guy on light, and he has different lenses for different times of day. So as the sun, there's like the daylight glasses if you're behind a computer, and then you can put on as the sun starts to set. There's a different type of glass, and then an hour before bed you wear the red glasses, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It kind of mimics the setting of the sun, and also like we used to sit around fires and look at the amber glow of fire, and that releases certain chemicals and like melatonin hormone. So yeah, I'm a big believer of practicing light therapy, as I now call it.
Yeah. I've even got friends who wear the blue light blocking sunglasses, and I'm even tempted to get some myself just because it's the thing that people are trying these days. So maybe I'll try it as well. And getting sunlight on your eyeballs in the morning is a really, really good thing. Yeah.
And watching the sunset. If you could watch the sun rise or actually get some sun first thing when you wake up, and then be outside when the sun starts to set, it will be beneficial for your sleep.
I really like that. What an excuse to go and watch a sunset. It's
That's right.
perfect. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I'm just helping my sleep.
Yeah, I just love my sleep. Do you have any supplement recommendations? Anything that you think is generally safe for, general people?
Yeah, so in my book, The Sleep Advantage, there's a whole chapter on this.
Okay.
So depending on what your sleep challenge is, whether it's falling asleep, staying asleep, or you just somebody that want to improve the quality and depth of your sleep, I have a whole kind of guide, whole chapter on this exact thing. Now, I'll give you a couple of my sort of favorites. I love kava. Kava. Now, a lot of people don't like to drink kava because it tastes like muddy water. But there's now companies that produce kava oil that you could use. And the reason I like it, it's a natural sedative. It actually helps rebuild the GABA system in the brain. And it's one of those things that works.
Yeah.
I've tested a lot of different supplements. Magnesium is another important one. A lot of people are deficient in magnesium, vitamin D. CBD can be beneficial. They're high quality CBD product. It really, again, it depends. It depends on the person. It depends on what your struggle is. It depends on what you're looking to do. But there are some really great sleep supplements that are out there that are, formulations that have amino acids like L-theanine and GABA in it. And I'm not a big fan of melatonin.
I was going to ask you about melatonin.
Yeah, all the meta-analysis show that it doesn't actually help improve sleep. It can help improve the timing of sleep. Like if you're crossing time zones, it can help you kind of mitigate jet lag, but it actually taking melatonin exogenously doesn't actually help with sleep latency or duration of sleep. And that's a meta-analysis of all the studies of melatonin. Now, melatonin is a great antioxidant. So using that as an antioxidant is great, but it used to be regulated in the EU. It's actually the European Union used to have it was regulated, like meaning you have to go to get a prescription in order to take melatonin. And in the States, all the sleep supplements, and people are giving it to their kids. So I mean, it's a hormone. So it's like, would you just give your kids a bunch of testosterone?
Yeah.
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm kind of anti-melatonin when it comes to sleep. Using it for other reasons, different story.
Yeah. Yeah. The kava oil is something I'd like to look into, though. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and the company, there's a company that I recommend, Kavaplex. Kavaplex, they make a really high quality kava oil. Again, I interviewed the owner and the founder of this company as well on my YouTube channel. Cameron, amazing person, knows more about kava than I think anyone in the world. And he made a really good product that we recommend to our clients.
Great, amazing. Oh, I have to give all of these tips a try. Is there anything that you think that we should add to this conversation before we finish? Or do you think we've covered it all?
I mean, we definitely didn't cover it all, but I think we covered a lot though, for sure. And I would just say, keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Like, it's one of these things that a lot of times people overthink their sleep, and then that actually gets in the way of sleep happening. So take small steps, take what made sense to you in this conversation and just apply it. And that would be enough. Just small things make a big difference when consistently applied over time. So just whatever, like, in this conversation resonated with the people that are listening to it now, just implement that small thing and it would be an improvement.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Devin. That was a great conversation, and I just know that everybody is gonna take a lot away from it. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a great conversation, and I appreciate you having me on the show. And I hope that people that spent the time to listen to this will take action on some of the things that we talked about, because it's game changing when you really start to optimize your sleep. It's world changing.